Balak, king of Moab by Ginzberg. God allows nothing to stay unrewarded, not even a respectable word remains without its reward. The older of Lot's 2 daughters had called her son that was conceived in guilt Moab, by the father, whereas the younger, for the sake of decency, called her son Ammon, son of my people, and she was rewarded for her sense of propriety. For when Moses wanted to overrun the descendants of Lot with war, God said to him, My plans differ from thine. 2 doves shall spring from this nation, the Moabite Ruth and the Ammonite Naomi, and for this reason must these 2 nations be spared. The treatment God bade Israel accord to these 2 nations was not, however, uniform. In regard to Moab, God said, Vex not Moab, neither contend with them in battle, which portended that Israel was not to wage war against the Moabites, but that they might rob them or reduce them to servitude. In regard to the sons of Ammon, on the other hand, God forbade Israel to show these descendants of Lot's younger daughter even the slightest sign of hostility, or in any way to alarm them, so that Israel did not even show themselves in battle array to the Ammonites. 712. Israel's hostile, though not warlike, attitude toward Moab inspired these people and their kings with great fear, so much so that they seemed to be strangers in their own land, fearing as they did that they should have to fare like the Egyptians. For the Israelites had come to Egypt as strangers, but had in time possessed themselves of the land, so that the Egyptians had to rent their dwelling places from them. Their fear was still further increased by their belief that Israel would pay no attention to God's command to them not to wage war against Lot's descendants. This assumption of theirs was based on the fact that Israel had taken possession of the kingdoms of Sihon and Og, even though these had originally been part of Ammon's and Moab's possessions. 713 Heshbon, Sihon's capital city, had formerly belonged to Moab, but the Amorites, thanks to Balaam and his father Bear's support, had taken from Moab these and some other regions. The Amorites had hired these 2 sorcerers to curse Moab, with the result that the Moabites were miserably defeated in the war against Sihon. Woe to thee, Moab! Thou art undone, O people of Chemosh! These and similar utterances were the ominous words that Balaam and his father employed against Moab. 714 Chemosh was a black stone in the form of a woman that the Moabites worshipped as their god. 715. As part of Moab passed into Sihon's possession, so did a part of Ammon fall into Og's hands, and because Israel had appropriated these land, the Moabites feared they would filch from them all their land. In great alarm they therefore gathered together in their fastnesses, in which they knew themselves to be safe from Israel's attacks. 716. Their fear was in reality quite without foundation, for Israel never dreamed of transgressing God's command by waging war upon Lot's descendants. They might without compunction keep the former provinces of Moab and Ammon, because they took them not from these, but from Sihon and Og, who had captured them. 717. At this time the king of Moab was Balak, who was formerly a vassal of Sihon, and in that capacity was known as Zur. After Sihon's death he was chosen king, though he was not worthy of a rank so high. Favored by fortune, he received royal dignity, a position that his father had never filled. 718 Balak was a fitting name for this king, for he set about destroying the people of Israel, wherefore he was also called the son of Zippor, because he flew as swiftly as a bird to curse Israel. 719 Balak was a great magician, who employed for his sorcery the following instrument. He constructed a bird with its feet, trunk, and head of gold, its mouth of silver, and its wings of bronze, and for a tongue he supplied it with the tongue of the bird Yadar. This bird was now placed by a window where the sun shone by day and the moon by night, and there it remained for 7 days, throughout which burnt offerings were offered before it, and ceremonies performed. At the end of this week the bird's tongue would begin to move, and if pricked by a golden needle would divulge great secrets. It was this bird that had imparted to Balak all his occult lore. One day, however, a flame that suddenly leaped up burned the wings of this bird, which greatly alarmed Balak, for he thought that Israel's proximity had destroyed his instrument of sorcery. 720. The Moabites, now perceiving that Israel conquered their enemies by supernatural means, said, Their leader had been bred in Midian, let us therefore inquire of the Midianites about his characteristics. When the elders of Midian were consulted, they replied, His strength abides in his mouth. Then, said the Moabites, We shall oppose to him a man whose strength lies in his mouth as well, and the determined to call upon Balaam's support. The union of Moab and Midian establishes the truth of the proverb. Weasel and cat had a feast of rejoicing over the flesh of the unfortunate dog, for there had always been irreconcilable enmity between Moab and Midian, but they united to bring ruin upon Israel, just as Weasel and cat had united to put an end to their common enemy dog. 721.